Imagine pulling an old computer out of storage, the kind most people would consider completely obsolete. Maybe it's a dusty laptop from 2008, or an ancient desktop that struggles to even boot modern operating systems. The fans spin loudly, the hard drive takes forever to load. And when you finally manage to start a modern system, everything feels painfully slow. Most people at this point would simply give up and throw that machine away. But what if that old computer could feel fast again? What if it could boot in seconds, run smoothly with minimal resources, and still provide a full desktop experience for browsing, writing, watching videos, or even learning Linux? This is exactly where Puppy Linux enters the story. Puppy Linux is one of the most fascinating operating systems in the Linux world because it proves that modern computing does not always require powerful hardware. In fact, Puppy Linux was specifically designed to run on extremely old or low-powered computers while still delivering a responsive and surprisingly capable experience. To understand why Puppy Linux is so unique, you first have to understand the philosophy behind it. Most modern operating systems are built with the assumption that hardware will keep getting faster and more powerful. Developers add more features, more background services, more graphical effects, and more layers of complexity. Over time, this makes the system heavier and heavier, which means older machines eventually cannot keep up. Puppy Linux takes the opposite approach. Instead of assuming powerful hardware, it assumes the hardware might be extremely limited. The entire system is built around efficiency. Every component is chosen carefully to minimize memory usage, storage size, and processor demand. The result is a full Linux desktop that can run comfortably on hardware that other operating systems abandoned years ago. One of the most surprising things about Puppy Linux is its size. Many Linux distributions today are several gigabytes in size. Even so-called lightweight distributions often require at least 1 or 2 gigabytes just for installation. Puppy Linux, however, is dramatically smaller. Many versions of Puppy Linux are around 300 megabytes or even less. That means the entire operating system can fit easily on a small USB drive or even be loaded completely into RAM. When the system boots, Puppy Linux often loads the entire operating system into memory, which means once the boot process is finished, the computer can run extremely fast because it is not constantly reading from the hard drive. This design leads to one of the most impressive features of Puppy Linux: speed. On many old computers, traditional operating systems struggle because the slow hard drives and limited RAM create bottlenecks. But when Puppy Linux runs from RAM, the system feels incredibly responsive. Applications launch almost instantly. The desktop environment reacts quickly to user input. Even machines with very old processors can feel surprisingly usable again. This is why many Linux enthusiasts refer to Puppy Linux as a revival system for aging hardware. Another reason Puppy Linux works so well on old machines is its choice of desktop environment. Instead of using heavy desktop environments like KDE or GNOME, Puppy Linux uses extremely lightweight window managers such as JWM or OpenBox. These environments focus on speed and simplicity rather than visual effects. The interface may look simpler compared to modern operating systems, but it still provides everything users need: application menus, taskbars, system trays, and configuration tools. And because the interface is so lightweight, it consumes very little memory or CPU power. The history of Puppy Linux is also quite interesting. The project was originally created by Barry Collar in the early 2000s. At that time, many people still owned older computers that struggled with newer versions of Windows. Barry Collar wanted to create a Linux distribution that was incredibly small yet still easy to use. His goal was to build a system that could boot quickly, run on almost any hardware, and remain simple enough for beginners to explore Linux without frustration. Over time, the Puppy Linux community expanded the project, creating multiple versions built on different Linux bases such as Ubuntu or Slackware, while still maintaining the same lightweight philosophy. One of the unique technical ideas behind Puppy Linux is its layered file system. Instead of installing everything directly onto the hard drive in a traditional way, Puppy Linux often uses a layered system that combines read-only system files with writable layers for user data. This allows the system to remain small and efficient while still letting users save changes, install software, and customize their environment. When the system boots, these layers are combined to create a fully functional operating system. Another fascinating feature is the live session concept. Puppy Linux is designed to run perfectly as a live operating system. This means users can boot directly from a USB drive or CD without installing anything on the hard drive. When the computer starts, the entire system loads into memory and becomes fully usable. Users can browse the web, write documents, watch videos, and explore Linux features without modifying their existing operating system. This makes Puppy Linux an excellent tool for testing hardware, recovering data, or simply experimenting with Linux safely. Despite its small size, Puppy Linux includes a surprising number of applications out of the box. Most versions include a lightweight web browser, a file manager, a text editor, multimedia tools, and system utilities. The included applications are carefully chosen to provide useful functionality while keeping the overall system lightweight. For example, instead of heavy office suites, Puppy Linux may include smaller tools that handle common tasks efficiently. This balance between functionality and efficiency is one of the reasons the system feels so responsive. Puppy Linux also includes a simple but effective package management system that allows users to install additional software. Many versions support packages from larger Linux ecosystems such as Ubuntu repositories. This means users are not limited to the default applications. If someone wants to install a different browser, media player, or productivity tool, they can usually do so with minimal effort. This flexibility ensures that even though Puppy Linux is lightweight, it is not limited in capability. Another aspect that makes Puppy Linux appealing is how customizable it is. Because the system is small and modular, users can modify many parts of it to suit their needs. Some people build custom Puppy Linux versions designed for specific tasks such as education, multimedia playback, or system recovery. Others use it to create portable operating systems that can run on almost any computer they encounter. Imagine carrying a USB drive with your entire operating system in your pocket. You plug it into any compatible computer, boot from it, and suddenly you are using your own personalized desktop environment. Puppy Linux is also famous for its speed of booting. On many machines, the operating system can start in under a minute, sometimes even faster depending on the hardware. Because the system is so small, there's very little data to load during startup. Once the desktop appears, everything feels ready to use immediately. This quick boot time makes Puppy Linux especially useful for tasks like system troubleshooting or quick computing sessions. Security is another interesting topic when discussing Puppy Linux because it can run entirely from RAM and from read-only media. It can be surprisingly secure for certain tasks. For example, if a user boots Puppy Linux from a clean USB drive and does not save changes after shutting down, the system effectively resets itself every time it boots. This can reduce the risk of persistent malware infections. Some users even use Puppy Linux as a secure browsing environment for this reason. The community around Puppy Linux has played a huge role in keeping the project alive and evolving. Over the years, many developers and enthusiasts have contributed new versions, improvements, and documentation. Different Puppy variants exist, each tailored for specific needs or based on different Linux foundations. Some are optimized for extremely old hardware, while others focus on compatibility with modern software repositories. One of the most inspiring aspects of Puppy Linux is its environmental impact. Every year, millions of computers are discarded simply because they can no longer run modern operating systems efficiently. By using lightweight systems like Puppy Linux, these machines can continue functioning for many more years. This reduces electronic waste and allows people with limited budgets to continue using older hardware productively. For students or beginners interested in learning Linux, Puppy Linux can also be a fantastic starting point. Because the system is lightweight and runs from removable media, users can experiment freely without worrying about breaking their main operating system. If something goes wrong, simply rebooting often restores the system to a working state. This encourages exploration and learning in a way that heavier systems sometimes discourage. Another interesting feature is how Puppy Linux handles persistence. When running from a live USB or CD, users can choose to create a save file or save folder. This allows the system to remember installed applications, settings, and personal files between sessions. It creates a balance between the flexibility of a live system and the convenience of a traditional installed operating system. Puppy Linux is also extremely useful for system recovery. Because it can boot on many different computers and supports various file systems, it can be used to recover data from damaged systems. If a computer refuses to boot into its main operating system, a Puppy Linux USB drive can often access the hard drive and allow users to copy important files to external storage. This capability has saved countless users from losing valuable data. Even though Puppy Linux focuses heavily on older hardware, it can still run on modern machines as well. In fact, on modern hardware the system feels incredibly fast. Applications open almost instantly, and the desktop experience becomes extremely smooth. Some users even choose Puppy Linux as their daily operating system simply because they appreciate its efficiency and speed. Of course, Puppy Linux is not perfect for every situation. Some modern applications may require more powerful systems or specific dependencies that are easier to manage on larger distributions. Additionally, the interface may appear slightly dated compared to visually polished environments like KDE Plasma or GNOME. However, these trade-offs are part of what allows Puppy Linux to remain so lightweight and efficient. What makes Puppy Linux truly special is the philosophy it represents. In a world where software often becomes larger and more resource-hungry every year, Puppy Linux reminds us that efficiency still matters. It proves that a carefully designed system can deliver a full computing experience without demanding powerful hardware. It also demonstrates the creativity and dedication of the open-source community. For anyone with an old computer sitting unused in a closet, Puppy Linux offers an exciting possibility. Instead of discarding that machine, you can give it a second life. Within minutes, that slow and forgotten computer can transform into a fast, responsive system capable of browsing the web, writing documents, playing media, and exploring the Linux ecosystem. And that is the magic of Puppy Linux. It is not just a lightweight operating system. It is a reminder that technology does not always need to move forward by consuming more resources. Sometimes innovation comes from doing more with less. Puppy Linux shows that even the oldest computers can still have a place in the modern digital world, and that with the right software, almost any machine can feel alive again.